Okay. All right, guys, welcome. We have a very special guest this evening. Hello, Sandy. How are you?
Great. How are you, Sloan?
I'm doing
Thanks.
great.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for coming on to talk to all the parents out here that are listening, grandparents, and concerned citizens that are worried about obviously the state of education and, quite frankly, the state of the country. I mean, as we've got the used to have the best education system in the world, and now, I mean, it's going further and further into the toilet, if you will, since even before COVID. And a lot of issues. I've known you for well over a year now, and every time I see you, no matter where I am, there's Sandy. You're out there talking to the parents, and you're getting the same feedback as I am. Is that these problems are really a problem of culture? Am I wrong?
You are 100% right. And what they're doing to our children is disgusting. It's scary. And the parents are worried because they see this indoctrination. It really came to light during COVID. I mean, yes, you're absolutely correct. It was happening pre-COVID, but parents, it really was brought to the forefront during COVID when they had to do a lot of the online learning, and parents had the opportunity to dig into their curriculum and see what they were actually learning in the classroom, or lack thereof learning, I should say.
Yeah, I think that the one benefit, if there is one, is that parents were, and really the country was able to understand what the heck is going on in the schools. And hey, paying copious amounts of billions of dollars really in the state of North Carolina. And we're getting this. This is not what we are paying for. Moreover, these kids are, they're in danger here. And so, that's really why I wanted to have you on and talk a little bit about what you're going to do in DC. So backing up, tell us about your region, the district you're going to represent.
Sure. Well, I am representing, or going to be representing, the first congressional district. That's 19 counties here in North Carolina. It is a very rural district. In 2020, I ran, and the district was rated D17 to D30, depending on where you looked. I shifted it 25 points and got within striking distance of taking my Democrat opponent out. That was the first time in history that anyone had got even remotely close. Then this year, they redrew our district, and it is now more Republican leaning. And this is a true toss-up district. I forced my opponent into retirement. So this is an open seat, and it's a swing district. So we have a real opportunity to have a true conservative voice go to Washington and fight for us, we the people.
Well, why did you decide to run?
Well, I was, a frustrated American. I got tired of seeing, what the Democrats were doing to our country and destroying and taking away our freedoms and liberties. And I'm a firm believer, if you want to take action, you need to be, if you want something done, you have to be willing to take action. And that's what I did. I stepped up and knew nothing about politics. I come from an extensive business background, focusing on in accounting and finance. My husband and I run our own company. It's a construction firm as well as a farmer. We have 137 acres that we farm. My youngest child, I just sent off to college, and I was nervous about that, but I knew he was prepared. And this is what, God called me to do. And it's been a fantastic experience, met so many great parents, and understand that there's a lot more of us than the radical them.
Right, exactly. And so, when we talk about education issues, one thing that really separates, well, just issues in general, one thing that separates the right and the left, besides culture, I mean, we know there's a lot of things that separate us there, is just a system of government that we want. So the left, they want a top-down type of government. Republicans, we want a states' rights type of government. In fact, a lot of us in the base are very frustrated because there has been this shift, right? This radical shift in the last 30, 40 years of power coming away from the state and going to the feds. Perfect example is the right of well, it's not a right of abortion, but the issue of abortion, right? That's one thing the left was their crowning achievement, is this Roe v. Wade decision, and that has been reversed. And again, the Supreme Court took that decision properly into the state. And so you'll hear the left over and over again use the excuse, well, we need that sort of top-down government consolidated in the DC area because we have to intervene, we have to make sure as the feds that the civil rights are being honored. And they'll correctly point out, right, slavery was overturned at the federal level, Jim
Hmm.
Crow laws, et cetera. But we've got that type of federalistic, government because we want to balance liberty, right, and civil rights
Hmm.
with order, and that's why it's there. And so,
Absolutely right.
yeah.
Well, I was going to say the other big distinguishing factor is Republicans traditionally want smaller governments. So where Democrats, they want government in every aspect of your life. They think they can run your life, raise your children better than you can. And that's the exact opposite of what Republicans feel that, these are rights and liberties and freedoms, and that you should be able to raise the children and educate them the way you feel. And the government doesn't need to be in every aspect of our lives.
Well, Sandy, now we're figuring out exactly how they would want to raise our children. So we understand that they want federalized strip club. They want, really what they want is a Studio 54 environment from K through 12. We've seen that Sodom and Gomorrah type thing. It used to be, a lot of us on the right talking about this stuff now, which now we're seeing it. And the reason is a lot of people have got their cameras on, they're keen to these ideas. And it's not that these ideas just started, they've been going on for years. What's just started is that we're seeing now the layers are being peeled away, and this is happening in full view of the American public.
Absolutely. They're not hiding behind the classroom door. They have opened the door and are proud, loud, and trying to indoctrinate and sexualize our children. That's really what they are doing. They are sexualizing our children. So our children become numb to this perverted garbage. And when we're pushing, or when they are pushing, I should say, for drag queen story hours in our schools, taking children to strip clubs and having them put money in people's clothing where it is totally inappropriate, especially for a child. It's disgusting. I was just watching last night, I think it was on another program, that we have an educator in the state of Washington who runs a sex shop, who is now trying to sexualize the children in the classroom. And I mean, we have to put a stop. Our children go to school to learn basic education, meaning reading, writing, and arithmetic, not to be sexualized, not to make a decision over what gender they should be or their pronouns. That is not the educator's job. Their job is to teach the basic fundamentals, period. And that's where we've lost sight.
And it's not that every Democrat believes in this. I happen to believe a majority of them do not. Here's the thing, though. I have not heard them speak out. I really have not. I have not heard Don Davis, who's your opponent. I have not heard him speak out at all. In fact, we'll get to him in a second. But when we talk about this states' rights issue and this bifurcation of what the state is doing and what the feds are doing, here's a story that you and I talked about, right? This story where Biden is saying, "Hey, I'm going to hold federal lunch program, breakfast program. I'm going to hold that hostage, and what you will do." If you're getting any of these grants, which, I mean, look, a lot of our rural area, most of our schools are rural.
Mm-hmm.
You were going to hold this hostage unless and until you allow boys on the girls' sports teams, boys in the girls' bathrooms, and in locker rooms. This is why the feds do not belong, right, into our schools now, because it's abused. Once the left gets in charge, totally abused. And that's what's happening here.
Absolutely. They're holding children's, lunch money hostage for this, and, starving children because we won't allow boys and men into our girls' restrooms for them to be victimized and not have a safe space. I mean, it's absolutely sickening. And it's shameful that the federal government would even consider holding lunch money out. I mean, you're absolutely right. We have a rural area here in Eastern North Carolina, and it is an actually very poor area. A matter of fact, my opponent who's retiring, or actually my former opponent who's retiring, brags about this district being one of the poorest in the country. And for them to target children is just, it's uncalled for, and it's terrible. We need to stop it. We need to get the federal government out of the classroom and stop trying to victimize our children by putting them in unsafe spaces, by allowing men in our locker rooms and our restrooms, and also taking the opportunities from girls who have trained their entire lives to compete in sports for scholarships, robbing them of those opportunities, all in the name of what do they call it this week? Every week they change the name: equality, equity. Who knows? I mean, it's sickening.
Well, I mean, what it is that it's a civil right violation, big time. I mean, girls don't even have the right anymore to have girls written on the outside of the bathroom. I mean, we're losing rights. I have to tell you this little side story. So
Sure.
last week I was at a lacrosse tournament. My daughter plays lacrosse, and I was sitting near a whole bunch of moms who were sitting at a table. And one of the, white progressive women, of course, chimed in and said, and asked a gay couple, hey, just asking you, did you adopt? Kind of silly question. Yes, absolutely. We adopted our 3 children. Then they sat there and they railed against Clarence Thomas, picked him out of the lineup. There were others, right? Railed on him and said, I can't believe it. And I'm thinking, had it not been for someone that 3 women who did not have an abortion, you wouldn't have your beautiful children, number one. And number two, the woman turned to the girls and said, I have to look at my daughter and I have to tell them that they have less rights. My daughters have less rights now. And I'm thinking, you're damn right they do. We don't even have the right to have girls only on our lacrosse teams. I mean, look, my daughter, she's only 12 years old, so it's not a big deal now, but next year it will be. Can you imagine one male goalie on a girls lacrosse team? And I mean, that team doesn't stand a fighting chance, or no team that comes against that team.
Well, you're absolutely right. Like I have my son, when he was younger, he was a wrestler, and they had one girl from another team on the boys team. Well, on their boys team, because there was no other girls. And my son was actually very good at wrestling. And it may have been the only match he actually lost was the one when they pinned him up with a girl, and he got off the mat and he said, Mom, I'm not supposed to beat up on a girl. And that's what we raise our young men and our boys to respect women and not to hurt them. And now we're allowing these guys who couldn't cut it on the male sports teams to participate and rob our girls. That's horrible. Horrible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they were right on this. We do have less rights. And if we had more prolific abortion policies, perhaps if this couple lived in California, there wouldn't be any children to adopt.
You're right.
Yeah,
it's so sad. But what folks don't understand about that whole the overturning of Roe versus Wade is it didn't ban abortion, which the left is trying to portray. That's what it did. What it did is it sent it back to the people's representatives, back to states' rights.
Yeah.
And then the states can now decide where they want to stand on this issue. And we've already have states that have taken that up and have banned it. We've had other states that said, hey, they're going to extend it. I mean, they've lost their minds. But I'm hoping here in North Carolina that we will pass some strong pro-life legislation to protect those babies.
Yeah, right. And so now we can hold directly accountable whoever we send to the state house, and that's going to be a very big deal. But let's talk about your opponent and what he's done in the state house. He's been there for quite a while, and on education, he's had a very loud voice on education. Let me show you. Whoops, I'm not able to show that. Hold on a second. So Don Davis is who your opponent is, and let me take a look at him. He's backed by the Radical Teachers Union. Let me tell you how radical they are. So NCAE is a derivative of the NEA, and that is a national teachers organization. We all know that they fought tooth and nail to keep the schools closed. And if you asked anything about it, parents, then you were a racist, right? You are always a racist with these folks. They want, get this, the NEA is having their national conference right now. I believe it's in DC. Here are some of the things they want, Sandy, and they want this nationalized. Number one, mandatory mask wearing, still now, today. Number two, mandatory vaccines, today, even though we have the virus under control, et cetera. I believe that there's a lot of bad science around this, and I believe that children and people are getting very hurt by this. They want that. Also, anti-Israel resolutions. There are 3 that they are proposing. when you talk about boycotting Israel and you single out Israel for ridicule and demonizing, you are an anti-Semite. This is an anti-Semitic organization, and they want to nationalize these policies. Transgenderism, teaching transgenderism, putting in books that you would never be able to actually bring to school. They want to nationalize that also. Your opponent has stood very strong against the parental rights bill here in North Carolina that would give parents the right to know whenever their children were being observed for mental health issues. It would give parents the right to decline having mental health services given to their children without knowledge or consent. You have a very, very radical opponent that you're going up against, Sandy.
Absolutely. He voted against that Parents' Bill of Rights Act. And the big thing on there, it was to stop this sexualization of our children, kindergarten through third grade. He thinks it's okay. And, that's part of our problem with our society and our school system is trying to sexualize our children, but also keep secrets from the parents. He doesn't feel that it's necessary that a school official contacts you as a parent and says, hey, we think that there's some mental issues, or we need to have a mental evaluation, or we want to give you them drugs. They want to prescribe things to your children. Now, let me remind you, these are the same people that if your child has a headache, they can't give them aspirin, but by goodness, they can give them, antidepressants, which we are seeing is causing so many issues and has been linked to a lot of these school shootings.
Yes, it has.
But he's okay with that. He is okay with sexualizing our children and has not spoke out about that. And that should speak volumes to our people here in Eastern North Carolina, because we need somebody who's going to stand up and fight for the parents, because you know what? The parents know best, not the government.
Well, if we send Don Davis to DC, I can tell you this right now. He wants to nationalize this horrific type of program. He wants to nationalize it. He's sponsored by de facto, the NEA. He hasn't spoken out about anti-Semitism and that being a part of the platform. He hasn't spoken out against this transgender grooming, even though we are seeing the most vile, as you pointed out, the most vile instances of that. Now, the left will tell you, hey, that's, that is neither here nor there. That's not happening, etc. Well, even if one bad actor is out there and it's being exposed on the national stage, you would think that, Sandy, one or two Democrats maybe would speak out, but you have none. Total silence from your opponent.
And none at all. No one's spoken out at all. And the thing is, there's science that has proven that these masks are not effective, and they actually hurt our children in the classrooms. They affect their learning. We have a lot of auditory learning that goes on in the classroom, and these children aren't able to see the lips of their teacher, and the teacher's not allowed to see. You can't see them when we have these children are masked up. We also are not talking about all the vaccine injuries that are happening across our country and throughout the world. And we've got to understand what the Democrats want to do. They want to control us. They want to control every aspect of our lives. They want to medicate. They want to indoctrinate. Bottom line.
Yeah, we've gotten away from, with the Democrats, freedom, and they're pumping out safety. Their concept is safety. Safety, as you pointed out, the VAERS data indicates that the vaccine, there's no safety data there. And by the way, we're not allowed to know about that. I'm make your case, right? Make your case, feds. If you want children to have it and boosters, I'm hearing today that 5-year-olds need boosters now. Show us the data. They won't do that. And of course, we're being censored, not able to talk about it. So, the censorship is a very, very big deal. And so the left, what they want to give us is safety. We know that that's just a smokescreen for total and complete Marxist government control, top down.
You hit bingo.
And we want freedom.
Absolutely. We just want the information so we can make the choice. And that's what, Republicans are pushing for. We just want to make sure that, that the information is not suppressed, because that is what the left is doing. The fake news media does it every single night. They want to suppress everything, just like on YouTube and all the other channels. If you have a view that goes against what they want to project, or their narrative, I should say, they censor you, they shut you down. And we need to stand up and stop that. We need to allow free information to flow in regards to this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about freedom, less about tyranny. In fact, we are seeing that tyranny is not only coming from the government, but it's this relationship, this incestuous relationship with big tech and other corporations. All of this, ESG scoring, things like that. Have you thought about ways that you're going to push back against this top-down tyranny?
Well, we definitely need to focus on what's causing the collapse of our country. And the first thing is our economy and our out of control gas prices. We have taken a booming economy and basically brought it to a stop. We need to immediately focus on opening up the pipelines and focus on domestic energy. And that will actually trickle down, because that's holding up our food supply. Truckers can't get the food here, to the market fast enough. And, we just need to make sure that we give the states the opportunity. Stop crippling our country with these regulations. I mean, that's the big thing. We need to get government out of the way of business and families. And by going to Washington, we need to push legislation that will address those issues.
I mean, you just brought up the food shortages. I mean, we now have them. It's only going to get worse. So can you imagine? I mean, really, Biden has your district, many schools in your district over a barrel, because these districts with traditional values who wouldn't want to have this stuff, right? They're going to be forced to do this because there's a food shortage, and you can't starve children. This is exactly what they want.
Well, that's why they like to shove a lot of the garbage into one bill, but it'll be like the kids, the children's school funding for their student lunches, and put these little things in there, like forcing girls to let boys use their restrooms and their locker rooms. It's terrible. I mean, parents are struggling enough. Why are we putting more pressure on them by having to worry about what the teachers are teaching in school by indoctrinating their children? Schools are supposed to be a safe place. And right now, you pointed out there, it's like a Studio 54 sex machine, sex shop education organization. And it's terrible.
And no one wants that. And that's one reason, that's one key reason why the Democrats are going to lose. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, the Democrats are really, really behind the eight ball. I don't care what they say. I don't care what people tell you. Now, that does not mean that we can sit on our butts and not door knock, phone bank, talk to our neighbors, arrange to drive 10 to 20 people to the poll. That is still the policy. That is what I've always asked you guys to do. That's what we're going to do, because we've got to hit on all cylinders. We can't sit back leg on leg and say, it's going to be taken care of. But I'm telling you right now, everything that you just said, bringing all this stuff into school, I can tell you, nobody, save for a few, again, white female liberals who are really going in, and they're the white savior for all these people of color. I want to save you, etc. Meanwhile, they're just securing their own place in the new world order. It's nothing more than that, right? It's nothing more than that. People, and in fact, do you know who rejects soundly the progressive agenda the most? That would be minorities.
I was going to say, yes.
Indian families. We have a lot of Indian families here. We live here in Holly Springs. I have a lot of them. They don't go for it. Asian families don't go for it. Arab families don't go for it. Hispanics. I mean, this is so, all of the groups that I mentioned to you guys, none of them are on board with the progressive agenda. And that is why everybody who is watching tonight, I want to make sure that you're reaching out to your friends in the minority community and say, do you know this is happening? Do you agree with this? I know that maybe I'm not going to ask you who you voted for or whatever. And I know that you've heard things about, the Republican Party, but take a look. Maybe just this cycle, take a look.
Absolutely. And I'll say we have some schools out here in the rural area that really try very hard to teach a traditional education. And I've spoken with them in regards to what they're teaching in the classroom. But you got to understand the CRT, the sexual indoctrination is being sprinkled in and weaved into the education under, fancy names and
Still learning.
exactly, exactly. So we just need to make sure we are focusing on and understand that it's there, regardless if they say it's not, it's there. I mean, I have school districts say, oh, we don't do any of those surveys, and come to find out they do those surveys.
North Carolina requires it from the top down.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. You've yeah, I mean, you're here, all of this stuff because everywhere I go, it seems like every talk I do, you're in the audience. You're probably, I mean, you know this better than almost anyone running, I would imagine, right? Because you've lived it. You've talked to parents for well over a year, maybe 2 years now. You've been on the road doing this stuff.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, I've been fighting groomers longer than most people knew about the word and what they were doing. A lot of folks don't know here in North Carolina, you can actually go to high school till you're about 21 years old. So we have 16-year-old girls with 20-year-old men going to school in our high school system. A lot of folks don't know that's happening, and it does happen here in North Carolina. So I'm a strong advocate for our family values and our children's education. We need somebody who's going to fight for us. And thank you again for letting me come on. If your viewers want to find more information out in regards to my campaign, please go to sandysmithnc.com. Like you were saying, we need folks to get out and help get people to the polls, make phone calls, knock doors. So if they want to help, please reach out. We'd love to. We'll put them to work. We'd love to have them.
Yeah, we need an army, guys.
Yes,
we need an army. We need ground troops. We don't just need air troops, right? Sending out mailers and stuff. We need an army. This is the time. You know what we're up against. You see what we're up against. Time to do it. Time to fight back. We have to send Sandy to DC. We've got 2 competitive areas that everyone in the country is watching. It's 1 and 13. And so, Sandy, you're representing 1. I know you're going to do a great job. Why? Because you actually care about the people and you're a problem solver. So thank you very much again for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Everybody. All right. Have a good night.